So again, Lekmat, thanks for dropping into the podcast today.
Thank you, Adam. Nice to be here.
So today I thought what we could explore is something that's quite a universal theme for all of us, is the underlying fear that we all have of failure. So let's explore a little bit what lies at the root of that drive for success and what lies at the root of that feeling of failure when we don't achieve what we want.
Yeah, so, I think first thing we need to know is that on some level, whether we've seen it or not, everyone has a fear of failure because of this way that we grasp at ourselves. And we have this naturally arising, although, we want to be able to reduce it because this is what causes the pain, of this feeling that, I'm important and I've got to be somehow more important than everybody else. But that's just because we're putting our attention on ourselves the whole time without realizing that that attention is what is increasing all the things that we're not doing well. It's what about me, what about me, what about me? And, of course, that's part of our ambition. But that if we don't let go of that and have a better motivation for achieving what we want to achieve, is going to be debilitating, and it's going to cause all sorts of difficulties and stress and tension. And this sense of self, totally normal, but we can reduce it and recognize, because it doesn't make sense intellectually that we are more important than everybody else. But the more we grasp at I'm doing this wrong, the more actually what's happening, even though the sense of failure or worrying about failure is potentially coming from I don't feel good enough, but only because we've got this irrational, coming from I'm important, but now I'm not important enough, or I should be more important. It's like we don't need to be important. It doesn't work. Eventually, it doesn't work because even if for a brief moment in my previous nun life, I was an artist at art college, and that is totally built on are you good at what you do, and then you display it, and then people come and judge it. So it's really debilitating. And occasionally,
fantastic learning. On reflection, it's great.
Yes. But at the time, I was at art college, and everybody I'd look, instead of admiring them, I mean, I really wish I had this understanding then, but instead of admiring them, I would just feel, I am hopeless, that's brilliant, and I hate them. And so immediately I had jealousy, instead of going, how did you do that? And then really being enthralled by how they did it, so I would learn. I would just push it away and go, I can't look at it. I'm not going in that studio because they are way too good. And then you feel it is just different. And art is so subjective, but it taught me that, then the stress of maybe occasionally you might do a painting that you might think is okay. But then immediately that's over and somebody says, yeah, I really like that, or that your tutor did or something. The stress at thinking, okay, I got some good feedback. I was invited to an exhibition or whatever it was that other people were going, well, I wasn't. You didn't think about that, but then you put pressure on yourself. Whatever success we have, now that's in the past. I'm not going to pay any attention to that and feel relaxed and confident and know I can do this. But then I've got to be better. I've got to do another painting that people are, and so the stress level of what you are projecting on yourself and projecting others. Well, certainly for me, it made it impossible to move forward. And what I wish that I'd had, because everything is why we do things is so important, and I was doing things totally from this me. People have got to. It didn't matter because somebody said that was good. I'd immediately think they're lying. They don't mean that. They're just saying it to be nice. Behind my back, they're really going to be pulling it apart. But it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Would you say for you, when there's jealousy, it comes with a fear, or it comes with a feeling of failure at the same time?
Absolutely. And I don't think we know, because jealousy is like this real poisonous mind that in a flash of lightning, and then it's gone, but it's left this feeling, the uncomfortable feeling, and that uncomfortable feeling then we hold on to of like, I am terrible, I'm not good enough, they're much better, and they may be much better, You know, they may be much better, but we have to be, jealousy won't allow us to accept how we are and our qualities and, you know, abilities, so they grow. But it then starts to compete in this very uncomfortable way that is impossible, because sometimes it's like oranges and apples are very different. An orange is never going to be an apple and vice versa. Yet, you know, a jealous orange really wants to be an apple. And so there's that. It's his self-torture. It's self-torture. You know, it's continuously changing. And I think we've got to become more aware of that is reality and just relax into that discomfort of constant change. And that can be really relaxing, but not with this, like the strong sense of I am this and I can't change. You know, one of my teachers would say, if you think that to yourself, you're right. And it's like, so give yourself, like, let go, give yourself time off. It's like, yeah, you're a failure in this moment. Wonderful. Relax into being a failure, because everybody's at some stage, and this is your time. Actually, at that point, when you know, really feel like you've failed, or, you know, you've lost your job, or you've lost your position, or, you know, you really messed up, and your friends and people go, yeah, real mess up. And then, you know, it's like, actually, that's a time when you can really relax, if we can accept it. I think it's really accepting it. The fear of failure is desperate to hold on to the feeling that we're important. And actually, when we get the sign that actually you're not important, stop struggling, there is a tremendous relaxation that can come from it. It's okay. It doesn't mean to say that we're worthless. We're just like everybody. We're not more important. But we're in this place where actually now you can relax.
But how does someone get around that? Because that "you're not important" to most people is deeply triggering. You're obviously presenting this in a very compassionate way, and I can understand completely where you're coming from. As you say, it doesn't mean you're worthless, but it's still deeply triggering to somebody thinking you're now not important. But what does that open up? And like, how can someone accept that without feeling deeply triggered, because they're thinking, yeah, thank you, you've confirmed what I always thought, which is I really am not important.
I think it's like to recognise that we're not especially important, but we're not especially unimportant. And it just means we're with others. And I think that sense of lack of success and failure, or that we're frightened of, thinks that I'm going to feel really confident when I'm feeling really important. But that's a lie. Because as I'm only as good as my last painting, it just made me more neurotic. Now more pressure because, I got that exhibition or I got that praise. So now that's got to happen again, because that felt momentarily, but it wasn't very long. And so that stress is not making me feel more important. So I just have to keep going. Whereas actually just relaxing and saying, yeah, it's not that I'm not important, but I don't need to feel more important to feel comfortable, to feel confident, to feel happy, actually.
It's so interesting that, because exactly like you say, if we look at our own experience, and you're just, to me, it's causing me to reflect on many different incidents in my life where I've really messed up, like badly. Like all of your kind of reputation or all of your hopes and dreams at that moment in your life are just momentarily crushed so much that you can't hold on to this drive for success anymore, because from that one perspective, it's like there's a failure, again, perceived failure, but in reality, it's just all your dreams, your hopes, that drive for success is crushed. But in that moment, not only does it bring you some peace because we let go of that drive temporarily, but it also seems to me like the way you're explaining that, it's like the most compassionate gift we can give to everyone else, because everyone else is just feeling the same, like when that's how people connect with their pain at that time, when we're just authentic. Actually, I'm struggling and this is completely unraveled for me, and everyone else is thinking, well, so am I. And it's almost like a gift to everyone else as well as a gift to ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that when we've really, collapsed, as it were. We like somebody said once, you fall down on the ground, but you use the ground to push up with. So the only way we can move and get better and redo it is by actually realizing we fall down instead of trying to not fall down continuously. And then from that moment, we've got something to help, to give, because we got completely crushed. And it's only at that point where you go, okay, and you ask yourself really important questions like, well, why am I doing this? And do I have a really good reason? And how do I want to do it differently? And then those moments are real gold for you and your life, but also that you won't judge anybody else then in the process of it, because it's unstoppable. And that's okay. And I sort of felt when I went through that from various days, I just had a real wish that was really difficult. But I really hope in the future, if somebody's going through it, I have the opportunity, to sort of share, to make them feel better.
It's, I'm reminded of that quote you'll know it well, that quote in New 8 Steps to Happiness where Geshe Kelsang says, we're as likely to develop the qualities that really matter through our failures as through our our successes. Easy for me to say. and I think it's a really important point, because we often think failure is going to lead to the worst possible experience for me. But in the way you're explaining it there, it really is. It's through the failures that we actually develop the qualities that matter, such as ability to connect with others' pain, ability to empathize, ability to develop a deeper compassion. Because I know in my own experience of my life, every very difficult period I've been through, and I've been through a lot, and every difficult situation I've had to deal with, it's taught me more and more about compassion, because I don't think I necessarily had that naturally when I was younger as much as I would love to. But as every failure seems to have opened up a whole new connection with others and their reality, and it seems like there's a constant learning that comes through our pain and our failures. And the learning for me has always been a more expanded understanding of compassion, a deeper connection with others, which really at the heart of it, that feels like success to me, because there's more peace that comes from that. There's more ability to be of use to others, which is, a truly meaningful life.
I think that's if we really reframe what is success, when I was grasping ordinary, external, what people are thinking, how well I'm doing, am I, all those things that we think are giving us that. The wonderful thing of having all that collapse on you is that then you get to really ask yourself, what's it all about? And actually it's the feeling that what was my greatest difficulty or greatest failure actually becomes the jewel, the pearl that's being shined, because then you've really got something that you don't look back at and think, oh, terrible me, but you can go, yeah, that was really helpful. It really redirectioned what I was doing, how I was doing it. And, there'll be many more, and maybe we won't be as frightened of those in the future, but can learn from them more quickly. But it's a process, isn't it? But yeah, definitely it's the pushing up from the floor. And I think I think we know we've got that when we can look back and go, yeah, it was hard, but actually I'm quite pleased it happened. I think, when I was going through it, one of my friends said, oh, this is great training. And just to be able to reframe it and say, oh, I'm being trained in this nightmare. Because then there's some purpose for it. But we can give that if we want our mind to be trained, if we want to get better and be able to connect more and have, better qualities inside, then whatever's happening in our life can do that. But I think it's just opening up that wish again to want that.
So I suppose that's where we could maybe lean into a little bit now, because you're talking about this process and your friend saying to you it's a training, and I think that's what I'd love to explore a little bit with you now and the rest of this conversation. Is people are listening today and thinking, wow, that is inspiring. There's, maybe they're also feeling like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But what you're really talking about is intentionally engaging with the challenges we meet in life and the apparent failures that we, confront in life, but in a way that we can begin to reframe that whole experience, so that actually leads to a feeling of growth. It deepens a feeling of connection with others. So what are the practical solutions that people can apply from today, especially people who, are tuning in and, they've not trained in meditation, or they've not trained in these methods? Are there meditations? Are there ways of reacting in daily life that we can just share a few ideas here today? So every one of these podcasts, we always try to emphasize the practical, like, here's the ideas, but here's what you can do to implement it in your daily life. It'd be great to just explore some of that with you.
Well, I suppose it's, I would actually say that I think it is possible almost immediately. And that the mind that thinks I can't is still the unconfident mind that hasn't tried it yet. Meditation is the method by which we can do a lot more than we think we can do intellectually. So it's medicine for the mind. So we sit down, we breathe. We understand at that moment, maybe we've got painful feelings going on, but just breathe through them. Take your attention to your breath and breathe. The breathing is not always easy, so you just keep trying to bring your attention back to the breath. And when your mind is a little bit, don't expect the painful feelings to go, because they will be useful. Just that you feel, okay, I can sit, I am sitting. Focused on your breath for a few moments. That or minutes, that focusing and settling is like allow yourself to then just imagine others sitting around you. Just imagine that, I don't know, your colleagues or your family members, you'll know already some of the things that's going on for them, and try and put your mind with your own experience of mental pain that you are experiencing, but we're reflecting others are experiencing it too. And in that more peaceful, or I would say like controlled thought process, we are trying to keep taking our mind back to others. Now, our mind will ping back to us because that's normal. We just have to know that this process of okay, people just like me, people are experiencing pain, and then you try to take your mind out again and place it on others. And this will go backwards and forwards. But even if you were to just do that for a few minutes, it will begin to transform and help you move through this, because already instead of in the same loop, which intensifies the suffering and our mental anxiety, we've already begun to relieve the pressure. And so, every painful feeling you've had, we can imagine, okay, well, I know so-and-so is experiencing something like that. Or we don't even have to know them. We just know that there are people who are definitely experiencing worse than me, have got much worse going on. And if you just put your mind out there, then your experience begins to help you empathize with them. And from that empathy, from that connection, even if it's imagined, then the real mental healing comes, which is this recognition of compassion. It sounds like a big word, but it's actually just a reaction. As soon as we notice somebody else is feeling bad, we want to help them. And we don't want them to feel bad. So if you notice, I don't want anybody to feel this, that already, instead of just trying to wriggle out of it, which is just making the knot and the pain tighter, we've I don't want anybody. That is already we've started to shift it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people think when you move your mind to others and think about their problems and pain, actually that's just going to make you feel more worried and more depressed. But the actual feeling is, when any of us have ever been able to move our mind off ourselves for even a few moments, we all know there's more peace there.
Yeah, and we can only know it through doing it. But I think we shouldn't be intimidated to think it's going to take years and years and years. It's actually just a switch of the mind. I'm sure most people have had the experience where they've had a really stressful day. All they want to do is pass out. And then a close friend calls and you think, oh, no, I can't. But then they tell you something terrible, much worse than your hard day. Immediately your compassion and your care for them takes you away, like a gift, takes you away from yourself. So then you recover. And at the end of the telephone call, you go, my life's not bad at all. Just in relation, whereas we could have if they hadn't had that phone call, we could have just tortured ourselves. It's really bad. And then we'd have gone through rabbit holes of negativity of how bad it's going to be tomorrow and how much, nonsense. But instead you got a break and you were able to totally put your intention. It didn't make you feel worse. It actually, if it helped you to go, that was, I feel better because I was able to get out of myself. And we can help ourselves by allowing that to happen. But that has to be from noticing it's really difficult. Okay, so you're feeling really difficult. Sit down. You can, in a few minutes, take your mind out and find that relief that will come, the pressure release, that just stops you this I would say sort of harming yourself mentally and doesn't make anything better.
Because difficulties coming is just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if anyone on the podcast can find somebody who hasn't experienced difficulties, then we can have a conversation about that. But in reality, difficulties coming is just life. But it seems to me what I love about this, the way you're framing this throughout this conversation, is we start with this idea at the beginning, a fear of failure, and that's what we're all struggling with. But it seems to me this is leaning more and more towards a point, do you think, that we can get to in our lives, like, well, no matter what's happening in our day or life, we actually embrace failure? Or do we even look forward to the failures that are inevitably going to come our way? Can we get to that place? Have you, in your own experience, have you seen how that's possible for somebody who's listening today to get to that point?
I think it's coming from the wish. Whether we will be, I don't think it'll stop us, me, from being afraid of failing. But during the recognition, I'm failing now. But that's okay. It's almost like to really let yourself remember, it's okay. Everybody fails. So with those growing pains internally are going to go on. And I think we don't need to trap them or be worried about them, but be more comfortable with things being uncomfortable, I think one thing that my teacher Geshe Kelsang does often is that he's like gives you confidence, because he would always ask you to do things that maybe I can't do that. Really? And it's just like, try. It doesn't matter if you fail, and that's freeing. Just try. Maybe really terrible, but that's okay. If we don't try, we don't know. And sometimes our fear of failure can stop us from even trying, and really having that freedom to go, failing is just a learning.
It's a bit like, isn't it? It's a bit like everything, all your growth, all your development lies on the other side of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because everything that we believe we are and everything that limits who we can be seems to lie on this side. And it's only when you stretch beyond that comfort zone you can see in the failures the potential for growth. We all have this incredible potential within us for all these good qualities we're looking at today. But often I've found this in my own experience. It's only when I stretch myself beyond that comfort zone and experience failure, which, normal for me. I experience failure in that trying to stretch beyond that a little bit. It's where you start to develop this understanding. I have this potential to live with more love, to live with more compassion, to live with more acceptance, the acceptance of the inevitability of failure. So it's only when we're encouraged by somebody else to step beyond that comfort zone that we actually see there's where growth lies. Because on this side of it, this is who I essentially believe I am already, and the limitations I impose upon myself and who I can become. But it's the failure on the other side of your comfort zone that energizes you to think, actually, I have more potential than I thought.
Yeah, we one thing that I loved with Venerable Geshe Kelsang is that he immediately saw that we could do everything and anything. And you get but you begin to believe that, but you're not going to be able to do that without many, many failures before it. So I think it's the relaxing in to know this is, as you say, that you're being stretched, and that's a wonderful thing. And I think if we don't allow ourselves to go out of our comfort zone, we don't learn and we don't feel stretched, but we won't feel happy. So I think we panic, don't we, if we've got bad feelings. But if we can accept those bad feelings and so, okay, this is normal, we don't want to stay with the bad feelings, but being able to accept that they're there and just allow ourselves to relax and move through them, because bad feelings are, whether in the mind, they will pass. And maybe we will, through that process, really develop some inner strength, some capacity, some understanding that we wouldn't have had that if we just stayed in the rain. It's like, yeah, okay, it's raining, but maybe you don't want to grasp that it's always going to rain. Move through it. But I think it's the relaxing while it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a perfect way to conclude a fantastic conversation today. Just people thinking about that. The growth comes through us making these changes and actually feeling like I can pass through that pain, but the pain that I'm experiencing through that journey that I'm on is actually helping me grow. It's not taking me backwards. So the failures are what enables us and energizes us over time if we have that deep wish to grow. So thank you so much, as always, Genlech. I've really loved this conversation. I could sit here for the next few hours and continue with it, but thank you so much for dropping in today. So much in that podcast that I think will be so helpful for so many. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.